Welcome to my channel, and I'm back with you once again with another video of Microsoft Flight Simulator. There is a series of videos that I'm doing for the Airbus A320 Neo, which is the default plane for the Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I've done 4 videos so far. And now in this video, I will be actually covering the taxi, the takeoff, and then the autopilot. So hopefully this video is also going to be a useful one for you. I am actually not trying to put all the information in one video, because then it gets very difficult to actually absorb so much information, and then the duration of the video also gets very lengthy. So I'm just trying to focus on specific areas. Once even the people are searching for different topics, they can also find those videos. So that's why I'm breaking up the whole flight into different sections, into different videos, so that you guys can easily search for the area of interest, and then you can watch that video. So right now, today I will be doing a flight from Karachi to Dubai, and I'm parked at Jinnah International Airport. As you can see, I will be taking off from runway 25 left. I have filed the IFR, and now I will be requesting the taxi clearance, and once I get the clearance, I will just move towards runway 25 left, which is just right ahead of us on the left side. Everything is good so far. Let's now turn on the lights, and because now I'm ready for the, let's keep them off, and that's it. Everything is looking good so far, so let's ask the tower for the taxi clearance. So let's get back to clearance and request taxi IFR.
Karachi ground Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray 320 with Sierra ready to taxi IFR.
Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray 320 taxi to and hold short of runway 25 left using taxiway Kilo Papa Echo Hotel. Contact tower on 118.3 when ready.
So let's acknowledge this clearance.
Taxi to and hold short runway 25 left via taxiway Kilo Papa Echo Hotel Airbus 320.
Okay, with this I can turn on the air radio communication, because I just turned it off. But now let's let the AI do the talking, and then we can just proceed further. As you can see right now that the taxi ribbon is now available to the runway. As you can see, I use it, it's for the ease, although you can just look at the taxiways through the airport charts, but I find it more easy. But I also refer to the airport charts, but obviously I'll just try to keep things simple for this video, because I'm assuming that the beginners will be watching this video. So that's why, for your ease, I'm actually trying to keep things simple. How to get these ribbons? If you don't have this ribbon, all you have to do is just press escape, and then go to the assistance options, and over here you will see navigation aids, and over here you will see taxi ribbon. So turn taxi ribbon on and off. You can do this, and I've turned it on. It's very good. Even after the landing, I know where to park the plane, so it's really easy. So now I've got the clearance, everything is done. After the takeoff, I will be climbing to 10,000 feet. Right now I haven't set the barometric pressure. I will just set it right now, and I will also tell you what this barometric pressure is, why it is used. Let's now release the parking brakes. Ground spoilers activated, flaps set to 1, and that's it. Nothing else required. Seatbelt signs on. Everything is good. That's it. So let's move this plane, and let's go towards runway 25 left by following this taxi ribbon. Speed should not be more than 30 knots during the taxi. Clear skies. I'm not using any live traffic, because there is then too much ATC communication with this plane, as there is no top of descent indication. That's why you have to have radio communication. That's why While recording a video, I just turn off all the traffic, because then, obviously either I can talk or the ATC can talk. But if I've tried the FSLTL injector, and it works really well. I've been doing some flights in US and Europe and in Middle East and Pakistan, and it is really a good treat. So let's stop here, just short off the runway. Just stop here. And
Karachi Tower, Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray 320 ready for departure, runway 25 left IFR to Dubai.
Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray 320 QNH 29.68 wind 239er at 9er. Cleared for takeoff runway 25 left.
Cleared for takeoff, runway 25 left, Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray 320.
Okay, so we have got the clearance, and plus the barometric pressure in QNH will be 2968. Just let me show you one thing over here. This is something which really confused me in the beginning, where once I was starting the flight simulation and somebody said the QNH, I couldn't even understand why they are doing it. It is actually an adjustment. Let's say I give you an example. You've got a weighing scale and you have to weigh something, but you're also using a pot to weigh it. So what you do is this: you initially put a pot on the weighing scale, and then you set the weighing scale to 0, because you minus that number. And then once you put anything on in that pot, you will get the weight of the object that's there in the pot, but not the object and plus the pot. So that's why it's similar kind of a thing. You actually adjust the barometric pressure, because the plane reads the altitude of the plane based on the barometric pressure. So you have to adjust the altimeter. Once I will adjust the altimeter, there will be correct reading of the altitude. Right now it's showing 320, because I'm at the sea level. Karachi is at the sea level, so it's showing 320. So if I move to 968, you will see this altimeter changing over here. You can see it's getting adjusted. So the true altitude was not the one that was shown, rather it's 100 feet. You see, so now it's adjusted. So that's why during the takeoff and during the landing, and this is very important. One more thing, every airport has got a transition altitude. So let's say if I go to the performance, can I see it over here? You can see transition altitude, that's 5,000 feet. So after 5,000 feet, you set the barometric pressure to standard. During the descent as well, where you are landing, this airport also has a transition altitude. So at that point, you have to actually change it to the given one to the standard, or then reverse it back from the standard to the given one, which you get at the clearance. So this is really important. You have to take this thing into consideration. So right now at Karachi, the transition altitude is 5,000 feet. So after 5,000 feet, usually in the Airbus, this actually indicator, the QNH indicator, starts blinking. So at that point, you have to actually change it to standard by moving your cursor over here, and once you see the down arrow, you simply press it, it changes to standard. And once the arrow is up, you click it, it goes back to the one that you have set. So that's how you do it. So this was a little introduction of the barometric pressure required, and it's very important in the Microsoft Flight Simulator if you are having a IFR flight following, because then the tower knows your exact altitude. Otherwise, it will be a mess. Your flight will be a mess. So you have to be very careful with the barometric pressure. One more thing regarding the throttle, which I want to tell you, that throttle has got 3 settings: the climb, the flex, and the toga. Toga is the maximum. So during the takeoff, if you keep your throttle at toga, it's basically take off and go around. Let me just put it in idle position as well. Without any reason, there is some stress on the engines. We've burned so much fuel as well. Okay. So the throttle is now in the idle position, and then there is toga. Let's start from here. This is take off and go around, maximum thrust. Then this is flex to temperature. If you go over here, you will see flex to temp coming. It's 20 degrees centigrade. I haven't entered it, but just ignore this setting while you are doing flights, because flex to temperature is actually a reduced thrust takeoff. You give a temperature which is higher than the actual one, so that during the takeoff the thrust is limited. Even if you keep your thrust over here, you will your thrust might not go more than 95% or 96% or 94%. It is very useful during the hot summer days when there is too much heat. So it actually puts less stress on the engine, and plus the temperature is less. But right now, as we are doing simulation, we are not really concerned about the health of the engines. It's just like a simulation. So that's why I always go for the toga. But still, if you want to see what flex to temp is, there is a performance calculation video on my channel which you can just go and watch, in which I have covered this topic lately. Then after the takeoff, you will go to this climb setting. As you can see in the performance, there is a thrust reduction altitude, that's 1580. So soon after the takeoff, once you will hit this altitude, you will move this throttle to climb, because in toga there will be, you can see toga is coming, I think it's 92.8%. So if you keep on climbing at this rate, there will be too much stress on the engines will heat up, and there can be a failure. You don't put so much pressure on the engine, not more than 5 or 6 minutes. So that's why you try to gain altitude, and as soon as you are at 1580, you reduce the thrust to climb, and then you keep it here, and then throughout the flight the thrust is at climb, and then the autopilot keeps on changing the thrust. During the takeoff, once you will move this throttle to toga, the auto throttle will automatically be activated. So because of this auto throttle, the autopilot will be changing the speed of the plane, and I will show you during this flight. So this is something which was really important. Over here on your screen, there is another thing that you have to keep an eye, is the V1, the speed at which you can abort the takeoff. So before that speed, as you can see over here, 146 knots, you can still abort, and this is the reason I have activated the ground spoilers, and plus set the brake to max, because I think I activated the parking brakes, that's why this was off. So I can still stop, but after 146 I have to take off, and the rotate speed or the takeoff speed is 153 knots. And after 153 knots, 157 is the speed at which I can still fly with one engine. So this is the speed that you try to attain. In case of any engine failure, you can turn around. So there are two important things. Number one, to gain the speed, and to plus reach up to a good altitude. Altitude is always a priority, but you have to keep the speed in your mind. You go to a higher altitude because of the reason that there is less drag. The upper atmospheric, the air is thin, so the plane goes fast, less fuel is burned. So that's why you go to a higher altitude. So this was the basic, and now I think everything is clear with you, and all the signs are up, and let's turn on the lights. Let's set it to take off, wing lights on, and that's good. During the flight, I will also tell you about the manage mode and the selected mode. Right now everything is in the manage mode. As you can see, there are 3 dashes, and then there is a circle, 3 dashes. So the speed is in the manage mode, the heading is in the manage mode, and plus the altitude is in the manage mode. So whatever the constraints, if I press the constraints, you will be able to see the constraints once I'm in the flight. You will be able to see the constraints, and the plane will actually follow the constraints, and these constraints are also visible over here in the flight plan. As you can see, 10,000 feet and 1,000. I always read it 10,000. Even in the previous video, I was reading it 10,000. I don't know why do I read it 10,000. So at VROOK, 1,000, LELAP 5,500, 17,000 Melum, and that's it. But for the takeoff, I've got a clearance of 10,000 feet from the ATC, so that's why I will be climbing up to this altitude. And plus, at every waypoint, there will be also a constraint from the speed. If it's given, it will be mentioned over here. As you can see over here, at MPET the speed should be 230 or less. So the speed is given over here. So this is the constraints, all the constraints given in the flight plan. So once in the manage mode, the autopilot will automatically follow all the managed all the constraints. But if I set to selected one right now, it's in the selected mode. Whatever the speed I will give, the plane will go according to that speed. So it's advisable to fly the plane on the managed mode, but during the flight I will show you what is managed and what is selected mode in detail. So right now I think everything is good, and we can just go for the takeoff. So I can release the parking brakes, and then I can just line up with the runway and go for the takeoff. I haven't released the parking brakes. No, released. That's it. My last flight from Karachi was in 2014. I was going to Islamabad, and it was an evening flight. I think it was 6 or 7 in the evening. Since then, I haven't been to this airport. 8 years. Okay, now let's go with the full throttle, toga. And as you can see, as I've given the full throttle, the auto throttle light is up. And I will keep an eye on the PFD, primary flight display, on the left side. When I see VR, I will just rotate. Now on your screens, PFD, you can see V1 has passed, and with this triangle, this is VR, and I can rotate now. Just pull back on the stick, and if you have a positive rate of climb, yes, then it's time to retract the gears. That's it. Now I will just pause it over here for some time, and I just want to show you something. Even the speed is increasing. Anyhow, this is the green dot speed. If your speed goes more than the green dot speed, you have to actually retract the flaps. And now you will not hear this overspeed thing. So this is something you have to do quickly, as the speed is just going. Because it said I am going in toga. In order to control the speed, as you can see, the speed is increasing a lot. So I can increase the climb rate, and with the climb rate I can control the speed. Okay. I should be at 240. As you can see now, the thrust lever is set to climb, so I can just set it to climb. This is the reduced thrust. As you can see now, the speed will be under control, and with this I can turn on the autopilot. So these are the two things that you have to do. You have to retract the flaps, and plus reduce the thrust at the thrust reduction level. You could see the thrust climb was coming over here. Now the speed is reduced, and let's click this button. I think the throttle is set to climb. Yes, you can also see climb is coming. I can deactivate the ground spoilers, and that's it. Because I was showing you guys few things, so that's why there is some kind of error going on over here. I went over speed and everything. I paused it, so that's why there is some issue. But right now you can see the speed is again increasing. It is going to be set at 250 knots. So just to show you guys that how the takeoff works, I had to take a hit on the takeoff performance, but my takeoffs are not bad. My landings are okay. So you can see now this triangle over here. This is the target speed. The plane will actually be achieving this target speed. Once this target speed is achieved, then the vertical speed or the climb rate will be set in such a way that the plane will keep on climbing. But if the speed slows, then the climb rate will reduce. So this is how it will actually manage. As you can see, the constraints are coming over here. VROC 1000 and LELAP 5500. So it's good as we are in the managed mode. Let me see if I've got any instructions. 10,000 feet. Okay. Request IFR clearance for instrument flight plan. You have to check
Center
this.
Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray
If you don't
320 requests destination change to Dubai.
Airbus Alpha Sierra X-ray tree 20
There you
is
go.
clear to Dubai Airport as filed.
It was a
576.
precautionary measure, but because if you don't get the
Airbus Alpha
IFR
Sierra
clearance,
X-ray
if
320
it comes
cleared to
again,
Dubai Airport as
then
filed.
the ATC will not follow your flight.
2576.
Airbus tree 20 readback correct. Radar contact 9,000 feet. QNH 29.68, continue to Lellup turning and following heading 275, resume on navigation, descend and maintain 8,000 feet.
Continue to Lellup turning and following heading 275, resume on navigation, descend and maintain 8,000 feet Airbus 320.
As I actually again requested for the flight following, so that's why the altitude is reset. But you can see increase in altitude. I can even, instead of descending, I can ask for the increase in the altitude, but still the ATC will ask me to descend to this altitude. So that's why this thing happened. This thing happens only when you fly out of Karachi. I've tried other airports, it doesn't happen over there. If you're trying to fly out of Dubai or any other airport. But I don't know why after flying out of this airport you have to again file for the IFR. Okay, so flight following is now good, and I am now descending to 8,000 feet. You can see the speed is set to 250 knots because below 10,000 feet the speed will be 250 knots, and above 10,000 feet the speed increases then. So now I am at 8,000 feet. I should be getting instructions to climb, but if I don't, then I can ask for the altitude increase. There is this slight issue with the flight following in this plane, but otherwise it works really good. So the ground spoilers are non-deactivated, the flaps are set to 0, thrust is set to climb, and with this I can turn off the lights because they are no longer required, and the wing light is not required. Nav lights, we'll keep them on, wing lights off, beacon on, and the strobe is also set to auto. So right now everything is looking good so far. You can see even at 8,000 feet I'm not getting an instruction to climb, so that's why I will ask the altitude increase, and let's go for 10,000.
Center Airbus
18,000
320. Request flight level 180.
Airbus tree 20 climb and maintain 14,000 feet. Expect flight level 180.
So now I will set this altitude over here,
Maintain 14,000
and
feet. Expect flight level 180 Airbus 320.
okay, now I will show you a trick. If I move the cursor over here and I see the down button, I click it, you see the circle disappearing, and you will see over here in the FMA, this part of the primary flight display, it is known as the flight mode enunciator. You will see open climb over here. It means that if there is any constraint over here, the plane will actually not follow that constraint, and it will straight away climb up to that altitude. So let me just give you an example. While I'm doing a flight from what you can say Heathrow, yes, there is a constraint at one of the waypoints, and that's 6,000 feet. So you cannot be more than 6,000 feet. So the plane stabilizes at 6,000 feet. So right now at Melbourne, the altitude should be 17,000 feet or more. But we are below, so obviously nothing can be done. But if it is lower, let's say if it was 6,000, and if I was going at 10,000, the plane would have actually stayed at 6,000. This is the advantage of using the managed mode. So right now, as I'm not using the managed mode, selected mode, so whatever I have selected, the plane will actually go to that level without taking into consideration any constraints. But if I move the cursor over here and you see the up button, I click it, you see the circle, then the plane will actually follow any constraint that's over here. And you will see this during the descent, because during the takeoff at from OPKC there are not so many constraints, so that's why they are not visible. But during the descent you will clearly see that how this works. Right now you can see as the plane has crossed the 10,000 feet mark, so that's why now the speed is increasing, because as I told you before, below 10,000 feet the speed should be 250, not more than that, or given by the ATC. With this you can turn off the seatbelt signs, and that's it. Smoking sign set to auto. I think I have to retract the lights as well, and that's it. Now the plane is going to this speed. Now right now whatever the speed is as per the cost index, the autopilot is actually setting the speed, But right now, let's say if I move the cursor over here, when it's down, I click this and I
Airbus
set it to
320 climb and maintain
320.
flight level 180.
Okay, so now you can
Climb and
see
maintain
the
flight
speed is now
level
reduced to
180 Airbus
320,
320.
300. Flight level 180. Let's climb to flight level 180. With this, I will also request. Now I've set the altitude to manage mode because the cursor was here and the up arrow key was here. So now I'm climbing up in the manage mode. It is always good to fly this plane in manage mode unless you get any instructions from the ATC and you're asked to set any speed. So let's also request for the altitude increase. This is how I do it. 10,000 feet. Let's
Center
go to
Airbus 320.
38,000 feet.
Request flight level 280.
Airbus 320 climb and maintain flight level 180. Expect flight level 280.
So it means that I will climb up to.
Climb and maintain flight level 180. Expect flight level 280 Airbus 320.
So now what will happen is this, that once the plane is at 18,000 feet, I will again get the instructions from the ATC to climb further. This is some issue that I'm facing, that while I'm doing flights from Pakistan and especially Middle East, the ATC doesn't tell me to actually increase the altitude. It just keeps quiet. This is some issue that I found out. But when I was doing some flight from Europe and US, then the ATC keeps on constantly telling you to increase your flight. I think maybe it's because of the issue that I'm manually entering the flight plan in the MCDO. But if I'm using the Microsoft built-in flights planning system, then I don't think so this issue will happen. But I like to manually configure the MCDO because it gives me a good flexibility and it gives me a chance to learn more about the MCDO. So right now the plane will actually go to 28,000 feet. I have to go to 36,000 feet. I can further request the increase. So that will be a difference of 8,000 feet. So let's add 8 more
Center
thousand.
Airbus 320.
Flight level 360.
Request flight level 360.
Because you can see as per the initial plan over here.
Airbus 320
360.
climb and maintain flight level 180. Expect flight level 360.
Now my altitude is set and
Climb and
during the
maintain
flight.
Flight level 180. Expect flight level 360 Airbus 320.
Airbus 320 climb and maintain flight level 260.
Now you see I've got clearance for 260 as well, so I
Climb
can
and
go
maintain
further
flight
to
level
260.
260 Airbus 320.
So right now you can see the speed is in the selected mode. So whatever the speed I'll select, you can see over here on the PFD, it's getting changed. Now as I'm increasing, it's increasing. So whatever the speed I will set it over here, and the autopilot will actually follow that speed. But if I move the cursor and I see the up arrow, I put it in the manage mode, then the autopilot will automatically keep on increasing and decreasing the speed price. This blunders can happen, but this was one of the best blunders. Microsoft Flight Simulator talking about prices. Unfortunately, right now in Pakistan, the price is increasing a lot. So maybe this was in the back of my mind. Okay. And the heading is also in the manage mode, which means that there is a flight plan. As you can see over here, if I increase the range of the navigation display, you can see there's a flight path. And heading is in the manage mode. You can see these dashes and plus a circle. So now the plane will actually follow this for flight path. What if I change the heading and set it to selected? Now I've set the heading to, let's say I'm going to deviate from the flight path, and I've set the heading to 238. You will see now the flight plan is now coming in a dotted line, and the plane is now will be moving towards the heading of 238 and will deviate actually from the flight plan. And now it's the heading is in the selected mode. Whatever the heading I will give to the plane will actually fly in this heading. And this what I've done with by first of all changing the heading and then moving the cursor over here. Once the arrow was down, I just clicked it, and now the plane is actually going in this heading, will be not following the flight path. As you can see, there is a deviation coming from the flight path. Now there is one trick which I would like to tell you. In case if this happens with you and you deviate from the flight plan and you want to go back, you have to simply put the heading in the manage mode. Right now it's in the selected mode. You can put it in the manage mode, and you can see now the plane is turning towards right, and it will again start following the flight path. So this is a very good thing. You can also fly on the heading, or you can fly in the manage mode. just like that. So just to recap, after the takeoff you have to reduce the thrust at the thrust reduction altitude, plus you have to set the flaps to 0. After the green dot speed, which is the clean speed without any flaps, without any slats, you have to disengage the ground spoilers. The speed brakes are automatically disengaged, and you actually have to manage your speed in such a way that the plane keeps on climbing. But once you set it to autopilot, then autopilot gives preference to the speed. As I told you before, the autopilot will make sure that the speed remains 320 or 250 or whatever the speed as per the constraints, but it will move the vertical speed accordingly so that the speed is maintained, because the vertical speed obviously decreases the speed. Right now, if I further increase the vertical speed but I don't increase the thrust, the speed will slow down. So this was another basic, and right now the plane is climbing to 36,000 feet, flight level
Airbus
360.
320 climb and maintain flight level tree 40.
Okay, now I will be further climbing to 340.
Climb and maintain flight level tree 40 Airbus 320.
So now with this, I think all the things are covered regarding the taxi, the takeoff, and plus the autopilot. With this, I would just like to end my video. If you've got any questions, do ask me in the comment section, and please don't forget to watch the video in which I will cover the descent and the landing and the approach, so things will be more clear to you. And if you want to add anything to this video, the comment section is there for you. I really enjoy reading your comments. I really enjoy giving answer to your questions. Thank you very much for staying with me. Have a nice day. Hope to see you soon.